Hello, everyone. I wonder if everyone can hear me. If you can give me a thumbs up or say something in the chat.
Yes,
Yes,
yes, we can hear
I
you.
can hear you.
Yes. Yep.
Perfect.
Yes.
Great. I'm not sure if Mark wanted to say anything before we started the presentation. I'm not sure. Oh, there you are.
All right, I just got the mic on. Yep.
Okay.
Hello, hello, and I do appreciate everybody coming out tonight for this virtual meeting. I will have this up on the website in a few days, so I do appreciate Miss Irving coming out tonight. She is a financial aid advisor from the University of Cincinnati, and she will be presenting on the FAFSA and the financial aid process. And I'm going to keep on admitting a few of these people in, and then I think that we can get started here in a few minutes, Diana.
I think I just need to mute it.
Maybe one or two more minutes. And then everybody else who is here, make sure that you have your microphone turned off. And that let's just give it 2 more minutes, Diana, and then we'll get started.
Sounds good.
Great.
Okay, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and start our presentation. Let me take a minute to get it on the screen. I hope everyone is having a great night so far. And I hope everyone can see the presentation, starting off with saying the financial aid assisting you in meeting your cost. My name is Diana Irving from the University of Cincinnati Financial Aid Office. And what we are trying to do is help you understand the process of financial aid, because your student did an excellent job of getting to this point. And now we have to figure out how to get in college and how we're going to pay for it. So what we're going to do is go through the basic process of financial aid. Once I'm done with the presentation, there is a chat box that you can put your questions in, and I will also give you my personal email if you do have any other questions after the presentation. And like Mark said, there would be a copy of this on your website, and we'll go ahead and start. I do want to start by thanking you guys for coming to our presentation and allowing the University of Cincinnati to be here today. So the goals of financial aid. Our number one goal is to assist the students and the families in paying for college. Because unfortunately, the federal government feels that financial aid and paying for college does not fall on the university, does not fall on the government, but it falls on the families. So what we try to do is evaluate the family's ability to pay, and we try to distribute our resources in a reasonable manner between our students. And we do like to provide a balance of give aid and self-help aid. This is the basic process of financial aid. There's two different things that can happen. The first one is fairly easy. The student files the FAFSA, which we will go over what the FAFSA is on October 1st. The schools receive the FAFSA. Students receive the financial aid award letters, and then the student will accept or deny the award. The second thing that can happen is the student will fill out the FAFSA, the schools receive the FAFSA, and then there's a possibility that the student might be picked for a process called verification. What that is, there's millions of FAFSAs submitted to the federal government every year. There's no way they can verify that the information for everybody that they submitted is correct. So they randomly pick 30% of students who apply to each school, and then they verify that what you put on the FAFSA is correct. So once that process has been completed, then the student will receive an offer, and then they can accept or deny the aid. So let's go into what is financial aid. So financial aid includes a couple of different things. Gift assistance, which is going to be the best possible form because this type of financial aid does not need to be repaid. This is either going to be in the form of scholarships, where usually merit-based or talent-based, or grants that are need-based. And then there is self-help assistance. This means that the individual has some sort of responsibility when receiving that financial aid. And that's either going to be work study or loans. And loans are money that has to be repaid. So let's go into some examples of what need-based aid is. So that's going to be determined, of course, by your financial outlook. The federal Pell Grant is going to be the biggest need-based aid that is given. It can range from $0 up to $6,345 per year. And this is universal. So if you receive the federal Pell Grant and you're applying for more than one college, you will receive that same amount for each college. No matter if you go to a 2-year community college or a 4-year college, you will still get that same amount. The Federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant is a grant that is also need-based. This one is going to depend on the school how much you receive. The $1,200 that you see here is University of Cincinnati figures. That's how much we give our students, but it can differ between colleges. Now, the Ohio College Opportunity Grant, that is a grant that if you graduate from an Ohio high school and you go to an Ohio university, if you allow it, then you can receive that grant. Now, $2,000, again, that's the amount that the University of Cincinnati gives, but it can range depending on the school that you choose. There is also a federal Teach Grant. The federal Teach Grant is if you are accepted into a teaching program, you can receive a grant up to $4,000, but there are some stipulations with that grant. So if you do not complete those stipulations, that free can turn into a loan. Next, we're going to go over a federal work study. So federal work study is also a need-based aid. So it has to be determined from your FAFSA if you're going to receive it. Usually employment is going to be on campus or one of our off-campus approved employment centers. Now, the good thing about federal work study, let's say that we have two jobs. We have Chipotle, and then we have a federal work study job. Chipotle is going to base your schedule off of Chipotle's needs, but your federal work study job is going to base your schedule off of your needs as a student. Our number one goal, again, is to get you graduated, and we want school to be the utmost important. So we highly recommend, if you're going to choose between the two, to do a federal work study. The next item is student loans. Now, I know student loans, a lot of people are saying, don't take out loans, and we really don't want you to if you don't have to, but sometimes you have to take out loans in order to finance your education. So these loans that I'm going to talk about now are in the student's name only. So the student can receive loans from the federal government, and the way they will do that is through the FAFSA application, which we will discuss. There are two types of loans that the students can receive. Subsidized, which is going to be their best bet because there's no interest, no payments that are accruing while the student is at least half-time in school. There is an unsubsidized loan that they can receive with no payments required, but interest does accrue. Now, neither one of these loan options, there is not a credit check required for the student. But after they complete college, let's say that they want to go on to get a graduate degree or a professional degree, as long as you're in school for half-time, there's a grace period. Once you are finished with college, they'll give you 6 months, and then you have to start repaying those loans to the U.S. Department of Education, loan servicing company. Now, the interest rate is fixed, but the interest rate can vary from year to year. So this year it's at 2.75%. Next year it could, so any loans that you take for this year will be at the 2.75%. And they have been going down. Next year the loan might be 2.71%, but you will have that loan will be fixed. Now, a private or alternative student loan can be taken in the student's name, but this is mostly credit-based. And this is like shopping for a mortgage or a car. You're going to have to go to different banks, different credit unions to see the different interest rates and the loan terms. And because most students are 17, 18 years old, they're going to need a cosigner. So this is why we highly recommend the federal direct loans over private loans. But if a student receives a loan in their name, it can never be transferred out of their name. The next type of loan is Parent Plus loans. Parent Plus loans, unfortunately, do require a credit check. You will have to apply for these loans. You can apply at studentaid.gov. The parent is the borrower, not the student. The interest rate is fixed. So this year it's at 5.3%. Now, like the student's unsubsidized loan, the interest rate does begin accruing. So even though you can choose to defer the payments, the interest rate does accrue. So just remember that. You can apply for the Parent Plus loan. There's not really a limit unless it goes over the cost of attendance. So the cost of attendance is going to include not only tuition, fees, room and board, other expenses that your student might need, like books, supplies, or transportation, a computer. But it is credit-based. So you do have to realize that. Now, if the parent applies for a Parent Plus loan and they are denied, the student will be able to get an additional amount of up to $4,000 per year in their name, but the parent will have to be denied first. Now let's go into how do we apply for financial aid. Now the way that you would apply is very simple. It's called the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. If you can notice, the first word is free, because there are a lot of sites out there that require you to make a payment in order to submit the FAFSA. Please do not pay to submit the FAFSA. It is free. Make sure you're going to the studentaid.gov website or FAFSA.gov website. Anything with the GOV, you're pretty much covered. Complete. For the seniors for this year, you'll have to complete the 2021-2022 FAFSA. The first time you can fill out the FAFSA, it starts on October 1st. You have to fill this out annually. So as a freshman student, you would have to start filling out the FAFSA October 1st, 2020, which is coming up in the next couple of weeks. A note about that is that make sure that you do complete it as soon as possible, because some need-based awards or some scholarships, we do a first come, first served basis, not just the University of Cincinnati, but other colleges as well. And we go by the FAFSA date. So what happens typically is we have some money that we can give out to the students. And it's usually gone to the students who filled out their FAFSA from October 1st to November 15th. Any student that filled their FAFSA out after November 15th, you can still receive the regular financial aid, but any additional grants that we might have, you would miss out on that. So just make sure you submit it as early as possible. In order to apply for the FAFSA, you have to be enrolled or going to be enrolled into an eligible program of study, pursuing a recognized program, a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen, have or are going to have a high school diploma or GED, and very important for the males, you have to be registered with Selective Service. And you cannot be convicted for the sale of illegal drugs while receiving federal aid. So the Federal Student Aid ID. A couple of years ago, in order to electronically sign the FAFSA, you would need a 4-digit PIN. But we found a little bit of fraud going on with that. So the federal government, to secure everything, decided everyone's going to have a username and password. When I went to college, we hand wrote the FAFSA, signed it, sent it in. It took 8 weeks to get our decisions back. But now with the electronic signature, the schools can receive your FAFSA information within 3 days. So in order to do that, you will go to the federalstudentaid.gov website. You will have to fill out a couple of identifying information. The student needs a FSA ID and the parent needs a FSA ID. So you have to each have one. The rule of thumb that we like to state in financial aid is make sure you are not using your high school email address. This username and password will follow you throughout your collegiate career, and you want to make sure that you have an email address that is accessible to you. Also, make sure the parent and the student are not using the same email address. Now, a thing about this is that you can go in after this presentation or any time before October 1st and fill out the FSA ID, because this part takes about 10 to 15 minutes. So this will save you a little bit of time when you're filling out the FAFSA. So now what I'm going to go over is some questions that we receive in the financial aid office. The #1 questions that we get. What I do want to note is when you are filling out the FAFSA, it is a tedious event the first time you do it. There are a lot of questions. It might seem overwhelming, but next to every single question, there's a little question mark that if you have a problem, it will give you a more detailed explanation. And there is a chat for anybody who can help you with questions if you have them. They are available till 11 p.m. There's a phone number and an email address. And like I stated, I will also give my email if you get tied up on any questions. So this question is, on the FAFSA, you can either be an independent or a dependent student. The difference is the independent student, we do not need parental information. The dependent student, we do need parents' information. In order to be an independent student, you have to answer yes to at least one of the following questions. Were you born before 1998? Married? Do you have your own legal dependents? Legally emancipated minor, graduate student, armed forces veteran, orphan or ward of the court, and legal guardianship, homeless or at risk of being homeless, or unaccompanied youth. If you answer no, which most of our high school students do, to all of the dependency questions, you are considered a dependent, and you will have to provide your parents' information. Living on your own, supporting yourself, filling out your own taxes does not make you an independent. FAFSA completion materials. We're going to need the student demographic information, the student's 2019 tax return. We're going to use prior year tax return, parents' demographic information, and parents' 2019 tax return. Another big question that we get is if I need to put a parent on the FAFSA, which parent am I going to put on there? So we're going to go through this. It's a little bit tricky. But the first thing is biological parents. If they are married to each other or not married, but they live together, we need both parents on the FAFSA, both of their tax information. For divorced parents or parents that are not together, not living together, the FAFSA parent is the one who the student lived with the most in the past 12 months. Now, if it was split 50-50, then this is going to be a conversation that you will have to have with your family to decide which parent. So what we normally say is what parent provided 51% of the financial support to the student, that's going to be the FAFSA parent. So let me dive in a little bit deeper. So we picked the FAFSA parent. Now let's say that the FAFSA parent has remarried. We not only need that FAFSA parent's financial information, but the step parent's income as well. So just remember that. It goes down a little bit. Adoptive parents are considered legal parents. We would need your information on the FAFSA. However, court-ordered legal guardians, parents who are foster parents, they are not considered to be legal parents. We do not need their information on the FAFSA. So students who are raised by grandparents, whether they're legal guardians or not, do not list a grandparent on the FAFSA. There is an additional step that has to be done in that case, which is called a dependency appeal. So you will have to contact the school that you are considering and asking them what is their process. Every school has a different process. So what essentially a dependency appeal is that we're going to try to get you into an independent status as a student, which will allow you to have a little bit more in financial aid. The IRS data retrieval tool. So one of the tedious process about completing the FAFSA is taking all the papers from your tax return and filling out each step. You have to fill out your AGI, how many taxes you paid. There's a lot of different entities that they're requesting on the FAFSA. So to make it simpler, faster, and with less errors, the IRS and the FAFSA have teamed up to create the IRS data retrieval tool that we highly recommend. What it does is take your information from your taxes and electronically sends it to the FAFSA. Now, the good thing about this is that the information, your financial information, is blank. So the only people that will see it are the financial aid officers who are conducting your financial aid award. So everything will come through as blank, but it will be transferred. It is the easiest, it's the safest form of submitting your information to us. Some important things. They're going to ask you a lot of questions about what to put on the FAFSA and what not. So what we get there, the number one question is, do I really need to put how much money is in my checking and savings account? No. This is what we say. After you've paid all your bills, after everything needs to be paid, you've had your fun, whatever money is left in your checking and savings account, yes, they're going to want to know that amount. So they're going to want to know the amount as of the FAFSA date. Investments, including CDs, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, they want to know that. 529 college savings plans that is owned by the student or the student's parent. So if they're in the grandparent's name, we won't need that amount. But if they're in the student or parent's name, we will. Rental real estate, including the land you own but do not farm, trust funds and businesses you don't operate, do not include the home that you live in, retirement accounts, farms that you own, value of your life insurance, or the value of your cars. And like I stated, if you have a question about if you should include it or not, there's a little question mark by that question on the FAFSA. Select the service requirement. I put this into the PowerPoint because a lot of people are nervous about this question. Unfortunately, in order to receive financial aid, if you are a male, age 18 to 25, you have to be registered with the Selective Service. If you do not fill out the FAFSA and you just are thinking you want scholarships that don't require a FAFSA, you do not have to register for the Selective Service. But unfortunately, they're requiring it. And in order to register, you can either do it on the FAFSA. On the FAFSA, there's a little box that says, do you want to register? Or you can go to sss.gov and register. So after you do the FAFSA and they collect all this information from you, they're going to come up with an intricate formula after you press submit. It's called expected family contribution or an EFC. An EFC is kind of what it's not exactly what the family is expected to contribute, but it gives the universities some type of number in order to base your financial aid off of. Now, the financial aid is essentially going to include anything that on the FAFSA, anything that the federal government is going to give you. So you're going to see that number right away. But anything that the state might give you or the university will not show in the FAFSA right away. That's going to be given to you later on. Now, the EFC is not necessarily meaning the out-of-pocket expense. Like I stated, it's just going to be a basis that we need. So the cost of attendance is what we do recommend that students look at when they're looking at college costs. So please avoid common errors on the FAFSA. The error on the FAFSA, no matter how minor, can cause a delay for 3 to 6 weeks. So make sure you are using the correct Social Security number. List your full legal name, not a nickname, not what somebody else might call you, legal name. Incorrect amount on the federal taxes paid is a big error. So that IRS data retrieval tool is an excellent tool for that. Adjusted gross income, and failure to sign electronically with the FSA ID. So just make sure you've done everything. So I want you guys to remember what I said earlier. We're going to need you to fill out the 2021-2022 FAFSA, but we are requiring 2019 taxes. Now, when you are filling out the FAFSA, please still provide your 2019 tax information. If anything happened, we know that COVID-19 is a big thing that happened in the year 2020. There could be job loss, a marriage, a divorce, a death in the family, medical bills, maybe even if your student has mandatory tuition at another school. Any kind of thing that might change your financial situation from 2019 to now, make sure that you're filling out what's called a special circumstance appeal. That is done usually about February or March at the school that you choose, and every school has a different way to do that appeal. At the University of Cincinnati, we're digital now, so it's all online, but there's still some schools that require you to fill it out and mail it in. So just make sure that if anything changes financially, you're filling out that form. What essentially it does is that instead of a machine looking at your financial situation, an advisor is sitting down and manually reviewing, and you can have contact with that advisor and explain your side of it. Now, quickly, I do want you to start thinking about it. Now it's where you have to start thinking about what type of school can we actually afford? What type of school is best for my family? So we want to go over some different costs. So we have community colleges like Cincinnati State or UC Blue Ash. Tuition and fees are about $6,000 per year. We have public universities like the University of Cincinnati, where tuition and fees are about $12,000. Room and board is about $12,500, so you're paying about $25,000 per year. We have private four-year institutions like Xavier, where the tuition and fees are about $30,000, room and board $13,000, so you're paying about $45,000 a year. And I want to note that if you decide to not go to an Ohio school, there is an additional non-residence fee of, it can be $13,000 to $20,000 over these prices. So make sure you're looking at this when you're choosing colleges and deciding who to apply for, and thinking, is this something that my family could afford? So after everything is said and done, you get your award, you're accepted into the school of your choice. Financial aid award letters are usually sent December, January, February timeframe of 2021. So December, 2020, January, February, 2021. Some of them are going to be different. Some will go by US mail, but some schools like UC, we email them. All award notifications are sent to students. That's very important, not parents. Per FERPA laws, even if the student is 17, still living in your household, things are submitted to the student once they start the college process. So just remember that, so the student can have access to their email and they're checking that email. So I know I went over the cost of tuition and fees, but there are some other hidden costs that we have to remember. Books and supplies cost a lot. In high school, we didn't have to pay for this. And it's going to depend on your major, how much your books and supplies cost. We estimate about $1,500 a year. You can always rent books that are cheaper, go to Amazon, textbooks.com. You can find different ways, but if you're going to the bookstore, mostly about $1,500 per year. Now, this is what I'm stating when we're looking at award letters. So when you're determining, you got a couple of award letters from a couple of different colleges. Go to the websites, look at the cost of attendance, the COA of each school. Then take your financial aid award letters and deduct how much aid you're receiving. Then look at how much your out-of-pocket costs, if there is any, or if you're going to be even. The worst thing in the world that people don't do is do research. When I was going to college, I had an option between a couple of different schools, but let's say I had Xavier offered me $40,000 scholarship. UC offered me $6,000. I didn't look at how much Xavier cost, and I just know I didn't want to wear red. I wanted to wear blue for the rest of my life. But I took that scholarship to Xavier and found out it cost $30,000 per year. So I end up going in debt for the same degree, where I probably didn't have to take as much debt if I would have chose the college that was cheaper. So make sure you are looking at those costs. Other financing options are you can always pay out of pocket through the Bursar, have a 529 plan. Co-op education is great. It might prolong graduation a little bit longer, but essentially you go for a semester, then you work for a semester. So it helps build relationships, and co-op education does let you know if this is something that you want to do. The worst thing in the world is going through college and spending a lot of money and going into debt for an education that you are not happy with or that you're not using. The funny thing about everything, I was pre-law, I was in teaching, I changed my major 3 or 4 times before I ended up with a degree in Spanish that I'm not really using. So just make sure that these are options that you want to do. Military resources are amazing. There's some great military options. You might want to speak with the VA office about that, and part-time employment. Money management tips: develop a money plan. Plan on expenses and ways to address it. Reduce impulse spending. Keep loan debt to a minimum. Only accept what you need. Think about other expenses when you have to pay these loans back. Are you going to be able to afford rent, a mortgage, a car payment, and the loan payments? So think about those items before you take out the loans. Anticipate upcoming expenses. Like I stated, books are an out-of-pocket expense. Moving, food. Maybe you might have to take a part-time employment. It's easier to reduce expenses than increase income. So just remember that. So I saved scholarships for last because everyone wants a scholarship. So scholarships are going to be your best bet. I'm first going to go over the University of Cincinnati's policies, and then I will go over a little bit more about scholarships. So at the University of Cincinnati, we have what's called, you can apply through the common application. If you apply through the common application, high school transcripts, test scores, everything has to be received by December 1st. Now let me break it down a little bit further. Since admissions is not requiring test scores for this year, we still recommend that your student takes the ACT, takes the SAT, because for scholarships, they're still kind of looking at those test scores. So we do a holistic approach for our students. We don't just say, okay, you're getting a 3.2 GPA, you're going to get this amount. We look at the student as a whole. So we're looking at the essay on the application is so important. What community service that you did is very important, but also put in those test scores, because that might be the difference between a $1,500 scholarship and a $6,000 scholarship. So even though admissions doesn't require it, I still recommend for scholarship purposes. Now at the University of Cincinnati, our deadline is December 1st to receive your Common App for scholarships. So if we get your Common App on December 2nd, you are not going to be in the running for Darn-T Turner, Cincinnati's, or college-based awards. So just remember that. We have a hard deadline. Other universities have hard deadlines. Make sure you're looking at the websites for the deadlines. Now, outside scholarship searches. This is so important. And when I say millions of dollars go by the wayside every year, because people just don't apply. Now, even though we have at the University of Cincinnati the Common App that for the bigger scholarships, we still have other scholarships that your student can apply for. So you can go to financialaid.uc.edu and check out those scholarships. But go outside of the school. Don't rely on the university. There's so many different websites that will give you scholarships. And you don't look at just websites that are looking for the 4.0 GPA. My son, you know, he wasn't into high school. We barely got him to college. And he hated writing essays. And I was not an advocate for fastweb.com, but we went and made a profile, and he's over 6'5". He played basketball. We got him a scholarship just for being over 6'5". You know, there's scholarships out there for left-handed individuals, red hair, freckles. Like if you have an asparagus farm, they're giving you $20,000 because they want people who have asparagus farms. A girl came in with a $2,000 scholarship about how much she liked Dr. Pepper. And that is just some of the scholarships that we've seen. Looking early, a lot of the deadlines are February 1st. You know, we have some that are later, but go in now, take a couple of hours on a Saturday and do a little bit of work to receive those scholarships. Remember, the most important thing, do not pay to get scholarship information. If they're going to give you free money, there's no sense in you paying for it. So just make sure you think about that. Now, we're here to help. This is the end of our PowerPoint presentation. Our one-stop student service, they help with financial aid questions, bursar questions, residency questions, but they're really for our students who are already on campus. So if you have any questions before you get to being a student at the University of Cincinnati, and even if you decide not to go to the university, email me, diana.irving@uc.edu, and I'll be happy to answer any questions for you. Now I'm going to stop sharing the PowerPoint and allow you to ask any questions that you might have so far. I'm going to open up. So if you see the little chat area, you can send some questions here. And I do see that we have some questions. So let me go down the list. Okay, so the first question is this sample cost structure per semester or annually? So the cost structure that I gave you, that is annually. So it's typically divided, when you're looking at the cost of attendance, students really go for fall semester and spring. So it's usually for the year, and then you divide it by 2 to figure out each semester. Let's see, clarification for selective service. If not 18 at the time of FAFSA application, do you need to do it or just add it to the FAFSA when you're 18? That is a great question. So you do not need to do it when you are 17. Even if, so if you turn 18 during, let's say from the time you filled the FAFSA out until you get into college, at that time, the university will request it. But if you turn 18 after, we will bypass it. So that is you don't have to do it right now, is the answer. Can you please explain bursar? Yes, the bursar, so there's different entities of college. There's financial aid, there is a registrar, then there's a bursar. The bursar is who actually bills. So the bills do not come from financial aid. They're the ones who sends the bills out. They're the ones who will put out the how much everything costs. And they're actually the ones who will bill late fees, take your payments and everything. So the bursar is who is actually the customer service for the billing aspect. What is a 529 plan? So a 529 plan is something that you could open for your student that is like a savings account for college that will help them pay when it's time to go to school. So that's something that is not done through the university. It's done through the state of whatever, state of Ohio, and then you can go and look into that and look at options for saving for college. Does music have a role to play in scholarship search? Okay, I'm just going to speak on the University of Cincinnati on that aspect. So our CCM department, they do a different search. So not only, you still have to have your application in by December 1st, but they also do an audition. So they do an audition, you're picked for the audition, you come in and you audition in front of a group, and then they decide if they're going to award you a scholarship. And that's why CCM does scholarships a little bit later than everybody else. We typically send out scholarship information in February. They might not do so until April. Oh, yes, let me write, somebody is requesting my email address. Let me write it in there now. Diana.irving@uc.edu. It's in the chat box now. I missed part of your presentation. Would you please post? Yes, so Mr. Millett is going to post the presentation, the recorded presentation, I guess on your website. And also we have a copy of the PowerPoint that we can send you. We had to amend our tax return last year by just a little bit. What do we do different? Okay, that's a great question. So if you amended your tax return, your 2019 tax return, the information that they're going to request on the FAFSA would be the amended numbers. Don't put in the previous numbers, the amended numbers. Can you send a copy? Yes, I will be happy to send a copy of the PowerPoint. If you want to email me, so I can have your email address, I can send it to you. Oh, yes, he said the PowerPoint will be shared on the school's website. See? And do we have any other questions so far? Let's see. We had to get an extension on our taxes, which aren't due yet. Okay, that is such a perfect question. So what happens if you have to get an extension on your taxes and they aren't due yet? What we are going to ask is an estimate of what you think your figures are. So right now, they're going to require an estimate before financial aid is dispersed. So that's next August. We're going to, if you are picked for verification, and like I said, only 30% of people are picked, then you're going to have to provide the tax information. But if you're not, the estimate will do. Related question to the one asked on the music scholarship, can the kid still get a scholarship based on his music talent, even if he doesn't want to study music in college? Oh, that is a great question. Now, from what I understand, I'm going to ask our CCM admissions about that. And if you could email me just so I can have your question and know who you are and send it back. But from what I understand, you have to, if you're getting a music scholarship, you have to go to CCM and study music. But just to clarify, I will speak with admissions about that. Let's see. Thank you. On the amended tax return, can we still use the IRS data retrieval tool? Oh, that is such a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. Unfortunately, for an amended tax return, it won't let you do the data retrieval tool. So you will have to put in the numbers for that. Okay, just to confirm, FAFSA is a prerequisite for any type of school aid, even if not eligible for federal aid. Well, this is the thing about the FAFSA. Federal aid includes grants and loans. So even if you do not receive need-based aid, which are grants, you can still receive loans. So that's why we still recommend to submit the FAFSA. It's free, even if you feel like you're not going to be eligible for aid, because there are some scholarships, not all, that might require FAFSA information later on. And it would be a shame if your student gets a scholarship and can't receive it because the FAFSA wasn't completed. See, my student is I guess in the 11th grade. If I want to apply for the FAFSA, we have to do it around the same time next year. That is correct. So if your student is in the 11th grade, you can, if you wanted to, if you think your income is going to be the same, go in and complete a FAFSA now just to see what you might receive. But yes, the real one will not go into effect if you're in 11th grade until next year. So October 1st, 2021. Does the FAFSA take a few days to verify your info when setting up the username and password? That is a great question. It can. It can take a couple of days. In my experience, it has not. If you can verify, for an example, they're going to ask you to put in your email address. So if your access to the email and you can verify that's your email address, it will allow you to do it that same day. Sometimes if you can't verify, it will take 3 days to set up. So that's why it's a good idea to go into the FSA ID to create your username and password now before the FAFSA. Right? Does it make a difference if the kid does not have a social? Yes, great question. So if they don't have the social security number, use the tax ID. I'm so glad that question was asked. That's a perfect question. Yes, tax ID will work. Just seeing if any other questions come through. Oh, no problem. You're welcome. Thank you guys for joining us. And again, I did have my email address in the chat. I got a couple of emails while we were sitting here, so I will answer those afterwards. And if you have any deeper questions or questions that you might not want everyone to hear, you can email me personally.
I just want to thank Diana as well from Sycamore here. I do appreciate the time, and like I said before, we will be putting it up on the website in a few days. So we will have the recording up, and we will also share the slides too. All right. I appreciate it, guys, and have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you.